Hi everyone. Welcome to Tech AI Solution podcast. Today we have a guest, David Kingsbury from DK King. So let us go to David. David, tell about yourself and what you do and what your company do.
Sure, Sir Taj. Thank you for having me on. It's a pleasure to be with you today. So my background is, well, to make a long story short, so I started in the healthcare field as a clinical psychotherapist. And so I have a background in psychology, in neurology, and in clinical counseling. And so from there, I worked with patients who had mental health illnesses, those that are struggling with addictions. I kind of worked my way up through the ranks of the mental health field, ended up becoming a clinical director over an agency. And then as an executive, I built treatment programs across the state of Kentucky. And then that led into me starting my own business where I provide through King consulting for treatment companies that are wanting to launch or to scale or to add to their existing service array. So I help them navigate the kind of the regulation complexities of that. And just give them ideas on how to be profitable, but also provide quality care to their patients. And so that's one thing that I do with King. But the other thing that I do is performance enhancement. So this is executive coaching. So I work with professionals to help them achieve peak performance. And I initially began doing that through kind of a proprietary system that I put together called Accelerated Neuro-Conversion, or ANC for short. And basically what it does is it helps automate positive behaviors for success. And sometimes we tend to get in our own way. And so this is a way to harness different neurological techniques and behavioral modification techniques to kind of supercharge performance. From there, I noticed that a lot of the reason that people were kind of struggling was not just the external, the conscious type of challenges that they face, but the subconscious. We have these kind of hidden programming in our brain, and being able to shift and to overwrite that program and create a new program brings about kind of automated, effortless success. And sometimes people get in their own way because their identity doesn't align with the things that they're doing. That creates internal friction. So it's like constantly searching for the next big success, the next milestone that I hit, then I'll be happy, then I'll be fulfilled, or feeling like maybe they're outwardly successful. Some of my clients are, but they feel like they're missing something. And the reason for that is often deep and internal. And so working with them through something I call the abundance approach helps them to shift from more overworked achievers. And sometimes they're burnt out, sometimes they're doing well, but they just feel like there's something missing. There could be more. And so the abundance approach helps them to shift into what I call the fulfilled visionary. So those are the primary things that I do with King. I'm still working with as a member of a private practice doing clinical counseling as well. So that's where I'm coming from.
Oh, wonderful! You did a lot of things in one go. So, if I have to summarize this, like the one service that you do is like you have the. I think you're talking about the health service only, right? If someone who want to create a clinic, you will set it up and like give it to through the procedures and regulations, make them running. And the second part, you do the upscale and performance enhancement, right? So those are two services that you do specific for the health service, right?
Correct. Well, now, in terms of performance enhancement, it's not limited to healthcare. Now, the consulting that I do is healthcare. So managing, there's a lot of state and federal regulations, to achieve facility licensure, or if they're wanting to get accreditation, national accreditation, something like that. There's a lot of, red tape and hurdles that you have to jump through. So I help them navigate that, but also how to build a program in a way that reflects their vision for treatment, but also is compliant, so they don't run into any issues with insurances or regulating bodies, and can deliver quality service. So that's the consulting part. The performance enhancement piece, or the deeper in identity work, is for any field. So any executive or professional that's looking to kind of go to the next level. That's what that's for.
Oh, that's perfect. So if I have to say, like, what would be your ideal customers?
An ideal client is someone who has already achieved a measure of success. So, for example, when I do clinical counseling, oftentimes people are struggling just to get by day to day, and so they might need help with overcoming severe depression. They don't want to get out of bed. Or it might be they're experiencing very high anxiety, crippling panic attacks, having difficulty holding conversations with people. So really, that's more about helping people to function, getting them back to a baseline level. Now, the performance enhancement that I do is for professionals who are already successful. Typically, I work with CEOs, founders, C-suite executives, and they're looking for more. They've already been successful, but there's an obstacle that they're facing that they've tried everything and can't get past, or there's something internal that's unaligned. You know, they're checking all the boxes. They look good on paper, but they know they could be more, and they feel like they're missing something. And so that's who that service is for. And I think an ideal client would be someone who has those skills, has those capabilities, but recognizes there's something else out there, more than just the next milestone, more than just numbers in a bank account. There's more to life. And those are clients that really excel with this program because they're able to bring that identity into alignment, you know, with their purpose and their meaning. And then their work becomes energizing and fulfilling, and they create greater impact.
So you help people enhancing their work, in their like individual and emotionally, I think physical, not physically, the emotionally, plus the like how they can excel in work, because it's all about the psychology between in a person, right? So you are focused on that person. Okay, so do we require any license in order to practice this? And the one service, the other one, like you help out the cleaning, like creating a new business. So you help out the service business to create a new one. So these kind of service do require a particular license for this?
To provide healthcare services, so psychotherapy, clinical counseling, yes, you do have to have a certain level of education and licenses to practice. So I hold 2 state licenses. One is an LPCC, licensed professional clinical counselor. I'm supervising, which is kind of like if you think of a hospital, you know, there are residents and attendings, and so one has to have supervision. They're still doctors, but in order to practice for a time, they're overseeing, you know, the doctors checking their work, senior doctor. So I would be on that senior level. So I have clinicians underneath me that I provide guidance to. My other license is an LCADC, so licensed clinical alcohol and drug counselor. So it allows me to treat both mental health issues and addiction. And then I have national board certification. Now, in terms of consulting or performance enhancement, there's not a specific license, you know, for that. It's really just you have to kind of know the ins and outs and keep up with the regulation and, you know, the things to watch out for, the pitfall and the mines, and that really just comes with experience.
Yeah, exactly. There are more things than just the license. You need to have the experience in that field and we kind of have that of psychology so that we can deal with those kind of a person. So this like the service that you're doing, it is specific to a certain area, or you're doing all over the US? So you can come, any of the US client can come to you and do this service?
For clinical counseling, there are specific guidelines, but for performance enhancement, that's worldwide. So I've worked with clients in different states all over the U.S. and, you know, clients in, you know, overseas as well. So, you know, I've got clients in Europe right now. I've had clients in Canada. That's a service that there's a lot more freedom because you're not bound by an insurance company, for example, saying you have to do it A, B, and C, and in this order, and these are the only things you can do. So it really gives me more freedom, I think, to use more, what I feel are more powerful, more deeper techniques that bring about success faster. And that's one of the reasons why my technique ANC I call accelerated, because you're able to move quicker than traditional counseling that might take months or years.
Okay. Okay, so I'm wrapping my head around this industry that you're working on. Should I call it a consumer service industry, a therapist industry? What exactly you would define it?
Well, I'm really operating in 3 different spaces. So, you know, one would be the consulting industry, right? So to help companies, you know, to grow or to launch or to scale. One is healthcare, and that's the clinical counseling, which is regulated by, you know, state and federal agencies. And then the other is performance enhancement, or you could call it, you know, executive coaching. So 3 different areas, but it doesn't really matter what area you're dealing with. Like, for example, the consulting, I think it's beneficial. You know, there are a lot of consultants that will help businesses to be successful. But in terms of healthcare and specifically behavioral health, what's been an advantage for me is boots on the ground experience. So I've worked as a therapist and I've worked at every level of care. So an outpatient clinic to partial hospitalization, I've worked inpatient, I've worked intensive outpatient. And so that experience helps me to understand here are the practical things that you're going to run into. So something can look good on paper and not work at all when you go to apply it. So that's beneficial. And when it comes to The performance enhancement or executive coaching, that really deals with every area of a person's life. It gives me more freedom to branch out. I'm not limited to just psychology. Of course, I use psychological and neurological principles, but to bring about effective change, specifically change that lasts, you have to deal with the entire person. So there's a biological element to that, a psychological, there's a social element, a person's relationships and
Yeah.
connections, and a spiritual element, what their beliefs are, what their values are. And so all of those things have to come to bear, and there has to be a shift in each of those areas. Otherwise, you might make a change in one area, but other areas are fighting. So for example, you might say physically, so I want to get in shape. I want to go to the gym. I want to be healthy. But psychologically, you might be saying to yourself, you've got a subconscious belief that I need McDonald's, that comfort food, to get through the day. But now you've got two systems fighting each other. You're going to the gym and you're eating McDonald's. So you really have to change them all in order for the change to be effective and for it to be sustainable.
Yeah, your experience is completely reflecting from your words and how you're correlating the things, and that's a very good thing. So now let's shift our discussions to the industry perspective. So currently, if I talk about the consultation or those other service industry that you are working in, how this industry is currently moving, like how this currently is shifting towards, to which part it's shifting, how it's shifting, what's your views on that?
Well, I mean, AI is touching everything. And so there's, from both the clinical side of things, there's a greater adoption. Just if you think back just to before COVID, for example, telehealth services to meet a patient like you and I are meeting now, that was extremely rare, almost unheard of. There was a lot of resistance from insurance companies to reimbursing for that. There was resistance from regulating bodies to allow that. There was resistance from therapists to want to provide therapy that way. There was resistance from clients that said, that's weird. I want to be in the same room with you. And then COVID happened. Everything got shut down. They literally closed the clinics and everyone had to do telehealth. And then there was this explosion of research where they said this is effective. And so there's a shift in terms of technology and ways that we can connect, which gives greater access, especially, there are clients that don't have a car. They can't get to a therapy session. And this way you can meet them right in their home. Or clients that are very rural areas. And the same is true in terms of AI. Now we're seeing a greater adoption of AI tools for things like documentation or things that you can automate the process, even sales calls, reminders, those types of things. So technology has allowed this ability to connect, I think, on a greater level, because it's taken a lot of the busy work off. And that's true not just of the counseling or the performance enhancement fields. That's true across the board, because for a company to adopt AI, for example, I think there's some resistance. A lot of times, existing employees will think, well, okay, I'm being replaced. But it's not necessarily replaced. It's more about bringing in tools that help them to be more effective at what they do. So if you can clear their schedule from a lot of what would be monotonous or mundane busy work, now they're able to focus more on customer care. And so the business owners that are adopting that approach and using it effectively are seeing returns on that. There's a company that they had to do a lot of follow-up, and they had to complete a lot of workflow with, I think it was an HVAC company, with their customers after they'd met with them. And so because there was so much, they were booked for one job, they have to complete this process. It was a real quick conversation with the customer. Okay, and then they're on to the next job. When AI freed that up, it freed up time for that tech to actually have a conversation with the customer afterwards. Hey, how did things go? Chat about their kids, whatever. That care translated into repeat business. And from a psychological perspective, when we feel that someone cares about us, it releases a chemical in our brain called oxytocin. It's the trust chemical. And so if you're able, if a company's able to build that into and engender that and demonstrate that with their clients, and their customers are generating oxytocin, well, you've created a repeat customer because they trust you. And sometimes AI can be a tool to free up time so that you can provide better care. And that's true on an employer level as well. Showing that care to your employees, that's going to enhance retention. That's going to enhance productivity. So it's all in how you use it. And so those are the things that I'm seeing, if that answers your question.
Yeah, that completely answered my questions. You covered up different aspects of the AI, how AI is impacting the business owners, how the owners are using the AI on the therapist part of a thing. I heard about, I actually read about an article which was saying that how the consumers, like the how people are using the chat GPT for as a substitute for therapist. But on
Mhm.
the other hand, there was a discussion going on, like we need to have this human intervention in between the person and the tech. So therapist comes into there, and there was also third party discussion going on, like therapists are itself using the chat GPT or AI solutions, so so that they can enhance their service. So this is a different aspects. People are working around the AI. They want to jump on this train in this AI and want to get a different results. There are some positive aspects of it, there are some negative aspects of it. I think you have covered everything that needs to be done. So, in the therapist part of the discussion, so are you currently using any AI solutions for yourself?
There is an AI program that will analyze a session. So
Hmm.
again, we're getting into like government and red tape and hoops you have to jump through. So we have to complete clinical documentation for
Hmm.
every service that we have. Now I do this as well with executive performance because it's just good to take good notes. You know, you need to
Yeah,
document. There's an
exactly.
expression in the field. If it wasn't documented, it didn't happen. So, but that can be very tedious and very time consuming. And so there's
Hmm.
an AI program that will passively, it was kind of like a note taking in
Yeah.
terms of, you know, when you're in a meeting, and so it passively observes the session, but this AI is programmed with clinical knowledge, so it can translate that into you know, medical notes, and that saves the
Hmm.
therapist time, so they can focus more on providing care. And so that's the
Exactly.
big way that I'm seeing it happen. But there's adoption in other areas as well, and there's pros and cons to it. And you talked
Yeah.
about, you know, people turning to AI, you know, for their therapist. Well, there's people turning to AI to be their girlfriend and turning to AI to be
Yeah.
their, and there's an element to that that's extremely unhealthy because you can't remove the human element of this. I mean, the sad part is I think that our society has shifted in so much, especially the younger generation. Their contact, like with their friends, is primarily through text and sending memes and, you know, on social
Yeah.
media. And so when it's just my text bubble, your text bubble, my text bubble, your
Hmm.
text bubble, well, then I've lost that human connection. And when that happens, you can get the same experience from an AI, but you're not dealing with a person with a soul that understands and feels what you
Yeah.
feel. And so we have to be careful. I think there needs to be some caution taken with that, not just on the side of, you know, I'm going to turn to a machine to meet my personal needs, but also in
Hmm.
business. We can automate things that maybe shouldn't be automated. Maybe you do need to pick
Yeah.
up the phone and make that call and say, I
Exactly.
appreciate your business, you know?
Yeah, yeah. As I've said, that we need the human intervention between the tech and the consumer part. So I
Mhm.
think that's where like human part is not going anywhere. It needs to be there. AI is at this point of time. AI is currently assisting us in this environment. So jumping on to now the industry, we have covered how the industry is moving, and we have also covered how this is impacting your business line, and so if I say that in here as a business owner, what is the one thing that is improving? Oh, no, what is one thing that is going very well, and what is one thing that is you are being frustrating about? So what are those two things?
Just in general in my business.
Yeah, as a
Uh,
business owner, you need to answer like what currently as a business owner in your business, what one thing you are that's working perfectly well, and the one thing that you can that you are frustrated about.
well, I think the thing that's going well is the reason why I got into the business. So it's not about, you know, dollar signs or, you know, I mean, you have to be profitable or you close your doors, but it's more about making an impact and seeing the change.
Mhm.
And so to tie technology into this, like, you know, tech is great at clearing space, but fulfillment comes when leaders use that space to step into a new level of identity. And, you know, that's
Mhm.
what I call the next chapter beyond just chasing bigger goals. And what's going well is when I see that happen, when I see leaders come alive. You can see a shift in the person. They feel
Hmm.
lighter. And that naturally translates into how they operate their businesses. So in some way, my success is generating their success. And so that gives me great
Hmm.
pleasure to know that, we're making a positive impact. And leaders who thrive don't chase more, they
Yeah.
create conditions where people and results thrive naturally. And so it flows again from that inner place of identity. And we all know in any company the culture is top down. So if a manager or an owner walks into a room and they're obviously stressed and frustrated and upset and overwhelmed, there's a thing in psychology called emotional contagion, that's going to spread to the employees. They're going to feel tense. They're
Hmm.
going to feel on
Yeah.
edge. And that's going to affect how they do their work, how they interact with customers. But wellness is also contagious. And so as you are able to be in alignment and operate from a place of creativity and of love and of care and of compassion, that trickles down. And so that's one of the things that's going really well when I see that happen. In terms of frustration or things that are difficult, I don't know. I think that one of the challenges is it's technology has made it easier
Yeah.
for anyone to hang out a proverbial shingle and say, I'm an expert at this, I'm an expert at that. And I know for myself, I had to spend 8 years in school and I had to take board exams and I had to
Yeah.
know the information and I had to do the internships and get the experience.
Yeah.
And so I know what I know, but anyone can build a website and say, I'm an expert in whatever and sound
Yeah.
very professional. And because some of these people are very good at marketing, they pull a lot of people in, but they're not
Mhm.
necessarily providing quality care. And
Yeah.
what happens in those cases is, someone promises I can get you more marketing clients, or they promise, I can use AI to automate, make your job easy, or I can, whatever that might be. And then the person gets burned. And now they don't believe anyone. They don't believe there's real help out there. And so
Mm.
I think we have to be cautious about that because AI can create videos that looks like, New York's got
Yeah.
hit by a meteor, but that's not the case. It's not real. And so we have to be
Yeah.
discerning.
Yeah. That's a, I think, a very good perspective that you have reflected here now. So, for as like how you reach, if somebody wants to reach you, one is the website option, and what are the, and my question is like how you outreach to your customer. One is the referral. What could be the other channels that you are using?
Well, I mean, obviously there's social media and you can run ads and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
Primarily, I operate through LinkedIn because my audience is
Yeah.
professionals that are typically in leadership roles,
Mm-hmm.
or just kind of experts in their field, whatever that might be. So LinkedIn is a natural place to connect with them. So primarily reaching out through there. And then we're looking into creating some events. What I would like to do is to host an event where we can kind of showcase the elements of the program. And my goal is that it be kind of a win-win, where
Mm-hmm.
if someone comes to the event, even if it's not, if they don't, prospect doesn't convert and become a client, they're still getting something
Mm-hmm.
out of it, still getting a benefit, which
Yeah.
is the way that I try to do with every sales call. I'm not big on sales pitches. I'm familiar with sales. I know how to close a deal, but
Mm-hmm.
I want there to be an exchange of value because the whole purpose is impact and making a difference.
Yeah.
So my goal is at the end of every quote unquote sales call, it's a free consultation just to see what's going on, how can I help? And sometimes we're a fit, sometimes not. But I want them to
Yeah.
walk away with something that is beneficial to them, something they can use, a little micro strategy. It's not going to solve all their problems, but something.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm excited about the event because that's a way that we can provide a lot of some things. And even if someone
Yeah.
doesn't move forward with working with the program, they'll have some tools that they can take with them.
Yeah. I think a event option is quite good. That LinkedIn is, or you already been reaching out to the people of the professional people in this industry, and event is another option. You're going in the right direction, I believe. So, so currently, are you measuring any metrics that you want to improve? For example, if I have to ask, which one metric that you want to improve in your business, what that would be?
Hmm. Well, we've built into the program and haven't rolled this out yet, but metrics in terms of measuring how people are embracing change and how they can see that change occur, because so much is subjective. It's just like, well, I feel like I'm doing better, but in the physical area, like how many pounds have you lost on the scale, right? And from the emotional or social element, how many new friends have you made? Or and it's difficult to quantify. Like, my relationships are richer. How do you measure that? And so we're building in some things that will begin to measure that. I mean, of course, there's metrics like conversions. How much does a piece of content or messaging, what's its conversion rate? But I'm more interested in how can we demonstrate real change, because, and that kind of is a carryover from my clinical work. It's very important that we're able to measure someone improving, and there are a lot of clinical instruments and things like that that can measure those things. But in the executive coaching or performance enhancement world, there's not a lot of that. There's to be a coach doesn't require like a state license, for example. There's not that level of regulation. There are lots of good certifications and things, but I think because of that, there's a lack in terms of objective metrics. And so my goal is to build some of that into the program, so people can look and they can see the before and the after, and they can point to, and we can point to, these are results. Like, we know they're happening, but we need some numbers to put with it.
Oh, that's nice. That's good. You want to quantify the things that are not yet quantified. That's a good metric to track. So if I have to say, like, where do you see your business in 6 to 12 months?
Well, rolling out this program. The program itself is primarily, now I'm doing it one-on-one. And I've always done like NC accelerated Neuro-Conversion. It's a one-on-one mentoring process, which works very well, but it's difficult to scale. And so I would like to kind of take the things that I'm teaching in a one-on-one and record videos and create kind of like a virtual classroom where people can join the program and they can watch the videos, do the exercises, kind of work through the process themselves. And that would provide for maybe a cheaper option, where if someone's financially strapped, they could still access it that way, and then create kind of a group environment where they can come in and the group can synergize and help each other. And rolling that out, I guess, is the next step. I would like to see that, 6 to 12 months, that would be nice. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, that's quite fascinating. I think that you have a right vision in your mind, how you're going forward with this business. And that's all we are seeking in a founder or a business owner. Thank you, David. I think we have covered every aspect of this business and your views. So thank you, David, for being on the call today.
It's been my honor, Sartaj. Thank you for inviting me.
Thank you.